Let's skip over to 5S+1, and this is a common misconception. So if you have had experience with Lean or with Lean consultants, they may have come out and said, hey, you got to get 5S+1 in first. And that's true, it's an important piece to get in early, but the purpose for it early is to build culture, because it's a place where problems are beginning to surface visually. And you're training your organization to see problems to surface visually. That's its purpose. So the 5 S's are sort, straighten, sweep, standardize, and sustain. This is where visual management, roles and responsibilities, and plan, do, check, act cycles begin to be developed. And those are 3 foundational pieces for this framework system. If you could imagine this framework sitting on a foundation, those 3 pieces are the foundation. So this is a place where you may have taught the theory of PDCA, but in 5S+1 it becomes a real thing that you practice. Okay? All these things, as you go through each one of the components of this subsystem here, you're going to find those 3 foundations in each one of them. But this is really a great place to exercise those things. And this is where problems begin to surface. So as you introduce problem solving, it's notional at first. You know, yes, problems present themselves, and yes, they're difficult, but because the organization's way back here in cultural transformation, people are individually focused, their problem solving focus is that problems are not a blessing. When problems come up, we use the problem solving methodology, but we're not really skilled at problem solving yet. Okay? So this is a place where you can let the 2 pieces converge, come together, where there's not a whole lot of harm in doing real good deep root cause problem solving here around a 5S system, because it was probably chaos before you started. So every little problem solving represents the opportunity for an incremental improvement in 5S+1. The net result is that early on you're going to drop some waste out of your processes, which is great. But at the same time, the real purpose, the hidden purpose for the leader is that this is a place, it's a field, it's a laboratory for learning. Okay? We've seen some amazing things happen when people have really taken that seriously and they've implemented 5S+1. Their problem solving goes through the roof. Their suggestion system numbers go through the roof, simply because they've committed to getting that 5S+1 system in place. And it's also a place where leadership begins to emerge, not leadership at the highest level, but team level leadership. So regardless of what your structure is, you may have span of control that's way too wide and flat right now in order to get good problem solving, but this is a place where leaders can begin to emerge naturally. And you're going to be able to see some people who automatically have that mindset that you want to strive towards down here at the end. And this is a good place for you to be able to see those young leaders emerging and maybe give them some responsibility for helping you move on this curve. And then the last piece is team structure. This is one of the last pieces that we would talk about in this early stage here. It's actually late in the first phase. But do we have the right span of control for human and operations balance, starting with problem solving? Do I have the ability, does my team leader have the ability to both work on the line and also develop problem solving among his or her team members? That's what the question is here. And then have we built a team structure in terms of numbers? We're talking about numbers here in span of control. Have we built it so that it's either or wide enough or not wide enough in order to make sure that that problem solving develops? And then this also gives you the first place where you can exercise the coaching model, because in the operational excellence system, leaders take on a new role. In the as the role of leader, they also have a role of being the teacher coach, which means that they have to be able to do all these things and also teach and coach others into these things in order to make the movement along the curve. That's one key piece as we talk about leadership today that we need to tuck away. And that is that at the top level we need to be leader coaches, and we have to develop our line leaders to be teacher coaches as well. And this is a great place for that to begin to happen. As you begin to shorten that span of control and identify that the team leader should be doing some coaching, and the context and the content of that coaching is problem solving, it's elimination of waste, those kinds of things, that gives them a framework within which they can exercise their coaching skills. It's very controlled as well. Remember too, if you're back here in 5S, it's very controlled. Because if you're starting from chaos and making little improvements, you're not dinking around with the process yet. Okay? So you're not creating ripple effects. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't look at the process. And naturally you will right away out here. But that's in order to get ready for the next stage, which is implementation. So that's our continuous improvement system framework. Within the OE system, there's something called continuous improvement. We have to build a framework in order to get to the next level. Out here, in its highest level, what we're looking at is this original framework that we built back here in year one, and we're talking maybe 4 to 6 years down the road here. Out here, what you're getting is QC circles, self-emerging around improvement themes that are set by the top level leader. So top level leader takes a look annually and says, we got a real problem with quality here, folks. I just got back from a pulp manufacturer. You guys would appreciate this. They had a quality problem called stickies. You know what stickies are? I didn't know what stickies were, but these are things that they're in the pulp that when you produce the paper, it actually creates a flaw in the paper. And so they pay attention to this, much like a PPM defect would occur in a normal manufacturing or assembly model. That's a big problem. That's a huge system problem that they've got to wrestle with. Yeah, they got to do it right now, but down the road, when this framework is in place and this framework has been exercised to get human change going and mindsets changed, then tackling that problem out here in terms of a QC circle is going to be a whole lot easier. So what's a QC circle, just to get us all in the same, using the same language? If you've participated in one of these 5-day Kaizen events, that is part of what a QC circle is. They're not one for one, okay? A QC circle is a focused improvement, generally directed at quality. It has a beginning, and the beginning does involve analyzing the current state of the process and trying to figure out how you can make improvements, but those improvements are controlled, they're tested, they're not done willy-nilly. And they're checked to see whether or not your hypothesis is true. QC is not the same as a 5-day Kaizen event, but what North America has done with Kaizens is a knockoff from QC circles. Okay, a couple of models here that we want to introduce before we get into some more of the meat and potatoes here. Most of you, I think, in this room have seen this, but if not, for everybody that is new to this, this is our cultural change or cultural transformation model. In the center, you have the triangle. At the bottom, you have values and core beliefs, mindsets and attitudes in the middle, and behaviors and actions on the top. So this is, if you were to able to take a picture of your culture, you could slot different things into these 3 different categories. And you can see on the left here that we think that culture is formed from the bottom up, but if you're going to transform culture, you've got to work from the top level down, and that's a big distinctive. So as a top level leader, you can't come in and replace values. You can't come in and say, well, we want to have the value of customer first all the time if the organization doesn't have that capacity, okay? Now, it may be a latent capacity, maybe a value that exists within the organization, but it hasn't been exercised. And when I say exercise, think back to the framework, because the framework gives you a place to go and exercise values. But you don't start there. You don't come here and try to replace a value. What you do is you work up here at the behavior and action level, think framework, and transform in this direction.